Perfect. Well, we'll go ahead and get started here. I want to thank you guys all for coming. And I want to thank the Reserve for having us here today. Elizabeth, did you guys just want to kind of introduce yourselves?
Sure. Well, my name is Elizabeth. I'm the Marketing and Member Services Manager for the Reserve. I know some of you maybe heard of us. We are a network of workspace destinations around the Twin Cities. We're located in Edina, Roseville, and in Woodbury. So our members have access to all of our spaces. We've got private offices and co-working space, as well as meeting rooms. And we're happy to continue this partnership with Skol Marketing. They are great. They helped us redo our website and been super happy with that. So they don't just do digital marketing stuff, they do websites and all sorts of stuff. So Ben and his team have been great partners and friends.
Awesome. Well, perfect. And so my name is Ben Tice, owner and director of Skol Marketing. We help local businesses and small businesses, again, with four main kind of things that go with digital marketing: web dev, SEO, SEM, and social media. But my favorite part of my job is partnering with great people like Elizabeth and the Reserve and being able to put on these awesome workshops. So with that said, we're gonna go ahead and just jumps right into it because I know we're running just a little bit behind and want to be respectful of your guys' time. So just want to make sure, can everyone see the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. So I always want to make sure. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today is going to be intro to social media advertising. So just a couple things is to know that feel free to ask any questions that you guys would like. If we can, we're just going to put you guys just on mute just for, in case there's any background noise or anything like that. But know that if you do want to ask a question, put it into the chat, otherwise we can do them at the end. Also note that, take any notes or anything that you want, but you will be getting a copy of this exact same presentation and a copy of the recording then at the end to help you, again, be able to reference that at a later point. So with that said, what we're going to be covering is four main kind of things here. We're going to be covering, obviously, the main one is going to be just social advertising, just kind of in general and kind of a plan to get started. But then we're going to start to go into how are the ads different on each platform and the different platforms that we can actually advertise on. Going to actually go into actually setting up an ad on Facebook and how we actually can implement that and some things to kind of look at. And then also throughout the presentation, just some tips and tricks. So the five main platforms we're going to talk about here today are going to be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. Now, here's the thing though, we are going to spend the majority of the time on Facebook. The reason for that is twofold. Most often when you start digital and social advertising, a lot of times you're most likely going to start with Facebook because it's the largest platform. Might be obviously if you're going after baby boomers, if you're going after maybe one that you're familiar with, most likely there's going to be some kind of connection to Facebook. But also the reason that we like to kind of start with Facebook and spend the most amount of time there is you're going to notice that you're going to have the most amount of options on your different types of ads for Facebook. And so really what we kind of like to say is if you get your feet wet with Facebook, it's going to set up all the other kind of platforms just that much easier for you. And so again, we're going to spend the majority of time on Facebook, and some of the stuff as we go through Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram or whatever, I might sound like a little bit like a broken record because at the end of the day, we're still just doing social ads, but just on a different brand. But we want to start there with kind of the strategy and whatnot. So the first thing that we want to start out with is starting with a plan. Now, this may seem kind of obvious and kind of like, well, Ben, duh, but it's super important because, one of the biggest things that people make the mistake on is they rush into these and they just start clicking buttons. So it's important to kind of understand the difference between boosting and running in ads, which are they call promotions or promoting. So boosting is essentially what's going to happen is you're already taking an already public post and you're just trying to amplify it. Again, it can work, if you're just trying to get some quick eyes on a post, if something is very timely, if you're looking at just, again, something's already public and we just want to amplify it, great, boosting can work. But in most things in the world, and especially digital advertising, the more effort and the more specific we can be, usually those things are going to come back to us and it's going to be more beneficial. Well, the same thing for social ads. So what I'm saying there is you can definitely do boosting, but what we're going to be focusing on today and what you should be really kind of focusing on are running actual social ads and doing the promotions or the promoting type of ones. And so those ones are, you're actually creating them almost behind the scenes. And Facebook, for this example, is only showing to them for the different demographics and stipulations that you put onto those ads, which again we'll talk about. But you can kind of see how that's different. We're already taking a public post for boosting that anyone can see if you like them or not, if they're connected to the page. And so we're just pushing it out to anybody like that with some stipulations. Or what we're going to be focusing on today is actually creating a customized invisible ad that's only going to be shown to the people that we want it to be shown for. So again, very specific. So we want to start with understanding that with kind of our plan. Another thing to also kind of start with is understanding the difference between Google advertising and social media advertising. This is a really important one because both of them are, work very well, and both of them can actually work together. But here's the philosophical difference that you're going to run into, and just kind of to notice when you're running ads either on Google or social media. When you run ads on Google, you're going after someone that is actively searching for you. We're going after someone that is, again, looking for something that we're telling Google we want to show up for. So if I'm a painter, I am going to only be showing up when someone's actively maybe looking for residential painting company, painter near me, things like that. So someone's in the mindset to do something. We don't necessarily know who they are. We only know where they are potentially and what they're searching for. Well, the big difference between that and social media is people aren't actively looking for us on social media. And so we kind of have to convert them and convince them of why they should click on our ad or engage with our ad. But also the benefit though that we get that we don't get with Google is we get to know, again, from a behavioral standpoint, we're going after people we think would be interested in our product or service and ultimately our ad because of these behavioral attributes, which again, we'll get into, but their likes, their dislikes, their gender, their age, their demographics, all of that other kind of stuff, much more comprehensive than Google's, again, able to kind of give us. But it's just two different ways to kind of go after people. Also, it's important to know that every time, and you guys may know this as maybe users of social media, but every time you're using social media, the reason it's for free is because they're essentially creating a profile or an avatar of you. So like when I go onto social media and I start, liking, the Vikings draft stuff and start posting about my dog and my pet pig and, again, talking about checking into my favorite restaurant. What, again, Facebook is doing is they're looking at all that behavior and they're, again, putting in those interest levels and those attributes to there so that if you as an advertiser come and say, hey, I want to go after someone that's the age of 25 and 35, likes pugs and lives here in the Twin Cities. Well, I start to check all of those boxes then. All I'm saying though is that, again, that's how we're able to kind of go after people from that, from a behavioral standpoint, is it's actually the platform that's actually doing all this tracking. And every time you do something on social media, that gets added to your profile. And there's an algorithm that essentially does that. So that's all good. And, so that's what we want to kind of start with a plan and understand that. But the other, probably one of the most important things that you can do when setting up a plan and making sure that you fully understand before you start an ad is understanding your conversion. Essentially, what do you want people to do? That is so important because this is also why sometimes boosting doesn't always work. So there's a couple things to kind of know with conversions. The simpler you can make your conversion, and the simpler you can make a user path or a user experience for someone, the greater success you're going to have with that, or the more conversions you're going to get. The more complex or harder or even more expensive your conversion is, again, your conversions are going to go less. That doesn't mean that they're not successful because, hypothetically, if we're trying to sell cars and we sell 2 cars at $50,000, well, that's still a very successful compared to if I'm selling sunglasses at $20 and I sell 100 of them, again, there's obviously numbers and value there. But again, you can kind of see that obviously you're going to get more conversions from people if we do have a lower price point or we're asking for something, simpler. To give you an example, signing up for an event, maybe we want someone to kind of do that. Maybe we want to sign up for a demo, a newsletter. Maybe we want someone to purchase something or to be interested in learning more about our service. Maybe you just want someone to see your brand. Maybe you just want someone to view a video. You can see there that I really just rattled off 6 different conversions. A lot of times when we talk to small business owners, they get confused and say, well, maybe I only have one. To be honest with you, it's laying out anything that a user could do that would be of value to you. knowing that obviously, yes, the purchase or signing up for, again, filling out a contact form for your services is definitely going to be the top one. And that's great. And we can have an ad for that, but also potentially just look at some of the other things that might be of benefit to you. Doesn't mean you have to have a separate ad for them. We're going to get into what's called a Facebook pixel that can actually track some of those other things. It's just understanding so that you can get the full value out of your ads and fully understand what you're getting out of those as well. Another thing that we're going to really want to do here is defining our audience and our different audience segments. And so the idea here, though, is that, the way that we may talk to a 24-year-old female is maybe different than we're talking to a 65-year-old male that's obviously a baby boomer. Again, so like the idea is if we can split these different audiences up, we can have ads that can potentially speak more to them. So the idea, again, going back to what I said at the beginning here, is the more effort you put into this, yes, it's more work, but it definitely is going to come back to you. You're going to see a better ROI if we take these steps. And this ultimately, if we do this, we can help ourselves avoid ad fatigue. Ad fatigue is when you get too broad and you start running too many ads and they start reaching the same person over and over again. Maybe you have experienced this on Facebook or whatnot, but the idea is that, Facebook does try to help with that, but you can help yourself by being able to actually take these steps that we just talked about and, again, seeing them through. So the next is actually then realizing, okay, Ben, so I've got my plan. I've got, again, I understand boost and promote and Google versus social media. I've got all that. Now let's actually start creating our ad. And so the thing is with Facebook is what's kind of nice is they actually take you through kind of a process. And the first process is choosing a goal. So this is kind of like the conversion really at the beginning. And you can see that there are different types of goals here. So there are get more website purchases. There are, again, promote a page if we just want to get impressions and more likes on our actual page. If we want to get more messages, if we want to get more leads using Facebook's lead system to make it easier for people to fill out, if we want to get more website visitors, you can see that some of these are out there. Now, some of your conversions may not be exactly here. Like for instance, maybe you have one that people fill out a contact form on your site and maybe one that fill out a demo. Well, those would still be maybe getting more website visitors, but again, there's still two different conversions. What all this is doing is it's just helping you set up the correct ad using some of the templates that Facebook is going to have for you. So the most common one is to get more website visitors. The reason for that is that's a lot of times where your conversions or your high value conversions are going to be. But also another good thing to kind of realize too is this is going to be one that is going to help you control the user experience in the environment. Obviously, the other ones definitely have value, and I'm not saying don't do them. It's just you can definitely see a difference here that if I set something up or I set an ad up that only lives on Facebook, obviously I'm relying on Facebook's kind of system, and I can only have them do what Facebook allows. Whereas if I can get them to the website, obviously, most likely you've built a website that allows, again, them to do what you want them to do from a branding perspective, from a user experience perspective, from a user flow or path perspective. You control that environment because you control the website or you built it. So that's going to usually be the one that a lot of people are going to look at. But I also will say the promote your page is a really great one to kind of start with, because again, what this essentially does, there's sometimes a misconception with promoting your page that you're buying likes. You're never buying likes. What you're buying though is impressions or introductions into the audience that you think would be interested to follow your page. Why, again, promoting your page can be super valuable. And a lot of times what I do with clients is we call it a trickle campaign, where for instance, maybe we just put $20 or $40 every month just to kind of help build up our page likes. And essentially you pick the demographics you think, that you would want people liking your page. Again, the reason that that's beneficial is you only pay for them once to follow your page. And then obviously every time that you post organically, you now have an opportunity to keep seeing and getting in front of them. Whereas like, for instance, if I serve you an ad and you go to the website, which again is still probably the most beneficial one here, but just to give you a comparison, is if I do that and you do what I want you to do on the ad, well, you're still not connected to me. So either I got to pay for you to kind of see that ad again, or you're going to have to remember me. So that's also where we're going to talk a lot about getting more website visitors today and setting up an ad. But I highly recommend you looking at the promoting your page, because from a long-term standpoint, that can hold a lot of value, because again, you're going back to the well. You're building up your well and you're filling your well, and then you get to keep going back to that well for no charge then. So another thing just to kind of know as we're kind of running these ads is there are going to be different variations of them or formats. So again, your ad is going to show up on desktop and mobile and kind of the right-hand side sometimes on desktop. And we have single image or carousel or single video, all of these different types of ones, again, to kind of make your ad the best it can be. Also know that some of this stuff is automatic, like for instance, desktop and mobile. We do a version and then Facebook is going to take that and put that on both different platforms or devices, I should say. Okay, so here's one of the more important pieces that we're going to talk about here today too is, okay, so now we've decided, Ben, we've got our plan. I know my, again, my demographics. I know my conversions. I'm going to pick this demographic and this conversion, and I'm going to set up an ad for those things kind of combined. We're going to do website visitors because I want them to do something on my website. And okay, now we're going to start creating the ad. So a couple things to kind of know. So the first is creating the ad. Again, you essentially have, what's kind of nice about Facebook ads is they're going to look kind of like organic posts. So we're going to have, again, text at the top and then a picture, and then even like a lot of times a call to action button at the end. So you get 3 different kind of components. So the first thing is putting in your message. Usually you get around 90 characters. So knowing that it's going to be a pretty quick call to action. This is going to be more of a supplemental type of, again, call to action. And what I mean by that is the best way that you're going to be able to sell your product or service of what you're doing on your ad is going to be the image or video that you're using. So that's going to be the main part of your ad. And then the text and message above and the call to action button below are going to more or less be supplemental types of ad components to kind of complete your ad. So you kind of have to play around with it, to be honest with you. 90 characters is going to come back pretty quick. Come by pretty quick. So you're going to have to just be very straight and to the point, as well as then with your image, have something that's really captivating. I'm actually going to jump down, again, to the bottom here in the text on images restrictions. That was actually something until last year. So really what this is talking about is if you ever read Facebook ads before, it was really frustrating thing that you could have an image, but you couldn't have text on that took up more than 30% of the surface area. They've essentially gone away with that or severely kind of reduced that restriction. So now you can have more words onto your image. So you can help play around with that. That's obviously more space that you can potentially get a call to action or a message in your image. So once we've got that set, we've got our message, we've got our image, and we've picked our, again, our call to action button. Most likely it's going to be shop now, learn more, something like that. Then we're going to move into demographics. So you get pretty much 3 demographics off the bat. You get to pick gender, male or female. You get to pick age, anywhere from 13 to 65 plus. That's going to be the age ranges, and you can be as specific as you want. So you can literally say, I want to go after 42 to 51. Again, you can pick exactly, again, that age, and then also the location. So you can usually get all the way down almost to like a mile kind of radius around something, or you can also then do pretty much anything you can find on a map. So you can do cities, you can do zip codes, you can do states, countries, again, depending on how big you're going to go kind of with that. So those are going to be kind of the 3 ones, pretty basic, but also, again, super powerful when we can be as specific as, again, possible. Now, demographics, it's important to know that for someone to serve this ad, they have to, again, check off all of those boxes. Now, interest is what we can essentially add to the, again, to our demographics to even get more specific. These are more of the behavioral ones. Well, these are also to know, though, these are an or system, whereas demographics are an and system, meaning that they have to be male and between the ages of 41 and 51 and located in Minneapolis. When we do interest levels, they are really good behavioral ones, but it's going to be everything that you kind of put in there. It's going to be or, it's not going to be more and more filters. So kind of understand that as we kind of go about there a little bit as well. So with interest, we can, the biggest thing is adding interest. So if you want to go after, again, dog lovers, you can start typing in dogs, different breeds of dogs, and it's going to be able to add those to there. What Facebook then is doing is using your demographics. You're telling them within those demographics, we want to go after people that would also like these products and services, or excuse me, these, product services, interest levels, whatever you kind of want to call them there. And, again, these are the people that we think we would, really like to go after. It's going to find those people because of their behavioral attributes and using the algorithm to be able to find them in there. So you can also go after titles. Now, knowing that, just know that within Facebook, titles can be beneficial. We're going to talk about LinkedIn at a later point here. LinkedIn's going to be much more beneficial for that from a B2B and stuff like that. But you can actually target different types of titles on Facebook. Now you have to rely on the information that someone's giving you, which again, like I'm sure you might have known with experience, people don't update sometimes their Facebook information quite as much as they may on LinkedIn. So just know that little caveat if you're going to go after people of positions. But interest levels can be, again, very, very beneficial. Now you have to pick within the predetermined ones. Now there are, again, literally thousands of them. And so most likely you're going to be able to find some there, but you might have some that are so specific that there's not something you can do. You can't just create an interest. You have to use their search system and be able to kind of find that. So once we've got the ad, we've got the demographics, we've got the interest inputted, then we're going to go into budget and duration. This is obviously, we're going to be able to kind of set, do we want to do, some of these have like more of like a daily budget. So, again, like how much do we want to spend per day? Or you can sometimes do a total budget. But a lot of times what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, I want to spend $20. I want to spend this over this how many days. The minimum that you can run is $1 per day. So you couldn't say, I want my budget's $20 and I want to run it for 27 because that would be less than $1 per day. So you at least have to do $1. And then it's also going to calculate how many times you're going to see it in real time. It's going to calculate how much, people or users that this is going to be able to kind of find. One thing to know is when you're building ads, you're going to see a little barometer kind of at the bottom of Facebook. It's either going to be red, green, or yellow. What it's essentially trying to tell you is you want to try to get your stuff into the green. But there's sometimes the language that Facebook uses makes it seem that you can't run ads if they're in the red or the yellow. You can actually run them. What essentially Facebook's trying to do is to try to, again, make sure that your ad isn't too broad or too narrow. But sometimes, again, we've done ads, for instance, where things, again, we're trying to go after a certain amount of people and there's nothing else we can really add to the interest or anything like that. And sometimes it's in the narrow. I just like to mention everybody that you can still run ads, even though it will give you like a warning saying, hey, this ad may not perform as well. And it's true, it may not perform as well, but it's still maybe what we want. And just because it's going against their system, there. So just kind of know that just as a little tip, again, for that. And then last but not least is there are some restrictions on certain industries. So like, for instance, housing, again, like, there's some restrictions on housing, on credit, on financial. Then you have usually the usual ones, more of your adult interests, or alcohol and, again, CBD or other types of things like that. There's obviously going to be some restrictions on those types of things. But from an industry's perspective, definitely sometimes it does trip people up if you are in the real estate or housing kind of industry. If you are going to be in the financial or credit, there's going to be some restrictions there because of some of the policies that Facebook has changed. Okay, so I kind of alluded to this before, but when you're usually setting up your first ad, you're going to see a little section at the bottom that says Facebook Pixel, and it's going to most likely encourage you to set up one. This is something that only needs to be done once and set up once, but super important. And if you've maybe run ads before and you don't have a Facebook Pixel set up, that's fine, but set one up as soon as possible. What a Facebook Pixel is going to do is it's going to make your life easier. It's going to give you a ton of valuable information without you having to do really anything and be able to kind of report that. So by you essentially installing a Facebook Pixel, it's going to be able to start to give you some detailed conversion data around purchases, signups, clicks, things that, again, you may not even be thinking about using some artificial intelligence and being able to pull those things kind of back in. So, again, Facebook Pixel is a must. One thing that you'll see throughout the presentation here, but I always like to kind of mention too is, Facebook Pixel obviously is for Facebook. LinkedIn has their own Pixel. Pinterest has their own Pixel. So make sure as you're setting up with these different accounts that you, again, make sure that you're setting up the individual Pixel for that platform for your website. And so one last thing to kind of know about Pixels too that can be super valuable is So one thing that's really kind of cool is as you have let your pixel kind of continue to go and gather data, obviously you're going to have people doing what you want them to do. Now you're not going to be able to get their names and know who they are, but obviously Facebook does. Facebook knows that Ben Tice, logged into his profile, went onto your ad and then went onto your website and actually bought something because of the pixel. It followed me all the way through. Again, you won't be able to know my name and stuff like that. But what you will be able to do is once you get enough of those and you've let this system start to run, you can run some super cool comprehensive ads targeting audiences called lookalike kind of campaigns, which essentially what you're going to do is you're going to tell Facebook and say, okay, Facebook, you know all of the Ben Tices and all these other ones that have already purchased on my site. I want to go after those people. I want you to find behavioral profiles just like those people that purchase stuff on my site. Facebook goes, okay, cool. So now they use all of that data that they had, and now they actually go and find those people for you. You can also upload your own data. So like, for instance, if you have data of people signing up or people purchasing things, you can actually, again, submit that data as long as it meets some thresholds within Facebook, within numbers and stuff like that. But essentially what that does is you're saying, hey, can you match any of this information up? Phone numbers, emails, names, and stuff like that to actual profiles, because these are the people that I manually want to tell you about and you have to go after. Some super complex stuff, also sometimes creepy as a user, but as a marketer, it's fantastic. And it's something that can be super powerful. But it really kind of starts with a Facebook pixel as kind of the best way. Obviously, it starts with ads and getting a plan, but really it's going to be implemented via a Facebook pixel then. And so one of the last things to know about kind of Facebook as well is, again, we've set up our ad, we've got the, again, the pixel going. There is, again, a whole platform called the Facebook Ads Manager. Again, you can go here and you can actually set up ads. You can either set up ads on if you just went to your actual Facebook page while you're logged in, or you can go to the Facebook Ads Manager. And from the Ads Manager, you can actually see some more detailed analytics and stats. So you can kind of see the performance of your ads. You can see the demographics, also cost per result. So like the example down here is really kind of fun. We can, here it's showing the different ages and genders. So we can actually see on the left-hand side here, and under this example is that it cost us $1.04 for every result, again, that we did, that a female did, while then it actually costs us $1.42 for every male. So obviously you can start to kind of make your own, kind of conclusions or decisions from there, but you get all of this complex data to be able to kind of do that. This is also where you can upload those lookalike campaigns that we talked about previously. We can create new ads. And one last thing that I always like to kind of remind people is, especially with Facebook, is that anytime you run an ad, remember that there are going to be people that obviously you want them, you're creating a post at the end of the day. So even though we want people to most likely click on our ad and go to our website for the example we've been given, most likely there are going to be people that either comment or react to your post, because it at the end of the day is still a post. One thing to remember and to take full advantage of is that to go to that post at the conclusion of your ad running, and to locate how many people liked, commented, or liked, laughed, loved, cared, all of reacted to your post. It's going to show you the little icons, and maybe it's going to say 142. Maybe at 142 likes and loves. Well, if you click on that 142, you're actually going to get a list of everyone that engaged with your platform, which is cool to look at. But what's really kind of cool is to the right of that, it's actually going to show you, again, people that are currently liking your page. And if they don't like your page, you can actually invite them to actually follow your page. So now you're getting an extra value out of your ad that you just created. Again, you marketed to all these people and maybe they didn't do something that you wanted them to do, or maybe they're not following your page, but get that extra bonus. So again, at the end of your ad, find your ad just on, you can find it within your ads manager. Find out how many people, liked, loved, or reacted to your post. Click on that number and start inviting those people that allows you to like your page. Those are free likes. Again, we're building that well and we're filling that well. So we go back to it, we can get that much more value out of it. Okay, so Instagram. Well, so Instagram is owned by Facebook. So the Facebook Ads Manager can actually manage both of your Facebook and your Instagram ads. So a couple things to kind of know is demographics, very similar. we're going to be able to come, again, do ages and, again, interest levels. We're going to be able to kind of, do locations, all of that kind of fun stuff. So very similar to what we kind of just talked about, same kind of process, maybe just look a little different because it's on Instagram. Now you have to make sure that you have to switch to a business profile. That's another good thing to kind of know about all of this that we're going to be talking about today, is that, to run ads on social media, you have to be having a business account. So, one of the things is promoting within Instagram. We pretty much, here's the basic rundown. We're pretty much just summarizing what we just went over in the past 3-4 slides with Facebook. We're going to select our call to action, what the button says. We're going to set our audience. We're going to select our budget. We're going to select our duration, and we're going to let it run. And so, again, we talked about that you can do these within Facebook ads. Another thing though that I will actually, again, recommend to you is that when you're doing Facebook ads, there's always an option on Facebook to say, do you want to also run this on Instagram? I always tell people to say no. If you want to run ads on Instagram, that's great, but set them up on Instagram. Take the extra time to kind of do that because you have some regulations, you have some kind of things there. So I always say that always take the extra step. I know it's a little bit more work. I know it's easy to, click that button, but it's going to most likely have a better impact for you later on. So that's one of those things to kind of look at there. Okay, LinkedIn ads. And like I said, it's going to be a little bit of a, rapid fire here because we've kind of understood what we need to do with that plan. That same type of plan that you had with Facebook, we're going to apply to, Instagram. Now, LinkedIn, though, is going to be a little bit different in that the demographics of LinkedIn are more B2B. So this is going to be one of those platforms that if you are B2B and you're going after, again, a business kind of crowd, not more of a B2C crowd, then LinkedIn is absolutely going to be, again, that for you. Whereas like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest, a lot of the same audience types of things that you're going to be able to select are very similar. LinkedIn is going to be different because now we can actually go after, well, how large is the company that someone's working at? What is their title? What is their industry? We can go after things that obviously are much more related to business and be able to kind of, again, now see how they're engaging with LinkedIn from a business profile. It's still going after, again, Ben Tice's LinkedIn profile, but obviously Ben Tice's LinkedIn profile is still a business orientated one, even though, again, we may have a Skol Marketing LinkedIn page as well. LinkedIn's kind of unique in that both of your pages are actually trying to promote the same thing. Whereas obviously on Facebook or Instagram, I have my personal account, which, yeah, maybe I'll post some things about, Skol every now and again, but there's kind of a little bit of divide there from the personal and business. LinkedIn is going to kind of bring those both together. So one of the things to look at, some of the different types of ads that you can run on LinkedIn. So one of them is sponsored content. That is kind of very similar to boosting. So taking one of those posts and kind of amplifying it. Now, the ones that we're talking about here, just so you know, too, are on your business page. So this is going to the Skol Marketing LinkedIn business page, not the Ben Tice one. So these are actually running ads. Now we can target individuals, but the actual ads themselves are running from a, again, business account. So we have kind of the boosting or sponsored content, we have the text and image ads. That's exactly what we just talked about with Facebook and Instagram. So running, again, those detailed or visual types of ads. Sponsored email. This is one that's a little bit different as well from the other platforms. You can actually send and target to certain demographics. You can send them messages, essentially, direct messages into their LinkedIn inbox. That is essentially a personalized message or a bland message or a broadcast message. But what's kind of nice is you get it right within their inbox. So you can a lot of times reach people, again, right there. So sponsored email can be, again, a pretty powerful thing if it's done right. We can also do position targeting. What that's talking about is job positions. So if you're HR, just knowing that they have a great HR type of, you're trying to fill a job. And then last but not least is LinkedIn Premium. This is more on the personal side. It's, again, I guess it's technically LinkedIn ads. It's not exactly what we kind of talk about here and everything, but it is important to know that from a personal standpoint, you can get a LinkedIn Premium account or like Sales Navigator and stuff like that, that can help you, again, set up some of these things, help, again, navigate your LinkedIn kind of profile and some of your objectives or reaching the certain demographics that you want from a personal standpoint. So a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences when it comes to kind of LinkedIn. So still want to start with a plan, still want to start laying all that out, but LinkedIn definitely is going to be for the B2B crowd. Okay, Twitter. So Twitter, very similar like Facebook, when we said we get to choose our goal. Well, on the right-hand side here, you can see that you actually get to choose your objective. Really kind of means the same thing. Well, they have awareness, consideration, and conversion. So some of the different things that we can kind of do here too that are going to be very similar to Facebook is we're going to be able to promote our website. Do we want more website visits? Do we want more followers on our Twitter account? Do we just want more awareness? Do we want more eyeballs watching a video or doing something like that? Do we want to try to get more tweet engagement, either retweets or comments or loves, things like that? Do we want to promote a video just in general and get more of those kind of views? Do we want to drive conversions either via store or an app install? So again, we're going to use the same type of things that we've been talking about with Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, with the plan, with the setup, with the audience, with the budget, with the duration, but we're just going to have to conform it and understand that, instead of goals, it's called objectives and all of those types of things. But really, if you create one ad for Facebook, you can really duplicate that on some of these other areas because of the same type of systems that they're going to run. Again, very similar. We have the pixel at the end. That's something obviously that you're going to see, again, throughout there as well. And then last but not least, before we open it up to kind of questions here, I want to see if you guys have any, again, questions to address is though Pinterest ads. So Pinterest ads, again, looking at the demographics, does it fit very much B2C? Very much, again, over 50% of the people on Pinterest have kids. It's predominantly women. So it's kind of the mom platform at times there. But this one is a very kind of cut and dry compared to some of the other ones. This is more of a promoting your pins. This is going to be more of just kind of boosting, again, like your post on Facebook. This is going to be boosting your pins within Pinterest. So they're going to look just like organic pins, just like if you boost a post on Facebook, it's going to look just like a Facebook post. But what we're essentially doing is we're trying to target a certain audience with our already created pin and to try to get them to kind of engage with it. So we can do pins and videos and apps, again, a lot of the same type of functionality, that we've been talking about this whole time. We're just now going to be able to kind of do that on a Pinterest level. So the idea is though too, is remembering that since each one of these are their own platform, we're going to have, obviously different setups. We're going to have, different pixels. But we're also going to have different budgets. And this is why, again, it's important to know to kind of start to track your ROI with your analytics and things like that, so we can identify the platforms that are going to be best for our demographics and who we're trying to target, but then also what we're trying to target in that, what do we want them to do with our conversions. So with that said, that kind of wraps up what we're kind of talking about here today. I'd love to open it up for some kind of questions, but this is kind of a recap. We're starting with that plan. We're understanding the difference between Google and social media. We're understanding the difference between boosting and sponsoring and starting to set up the ads with different demographics, different interest levels, different visuals, different conversions, and really kind of going through these with the different types of platforms, being able to kind of see that and kind of figure out what's going to be best for us as well. So with that said, I do want to open this up. If you guys have any questions, feel free. You can either unmute yourself or put something in the chat bar if you guys have anything like that. Michelle, did you have a question? I saw you unmute.
Am I on mute?
No, I said I saw you unmuted, so I thought
I
maybe you had a question.
unmuted, yeah. I guess I'm thinking about all of this and, some of these things like creating a pixel, it sounds like it's pretty, and obviously you're doing a different pixel for each thing, but how you actually walk that out, how you do, how you create a pixel. Some of this stuff is like, there are only so many hours in a day. Is this work that you guys do that, like do you have a package where you can help people set up a basic platform for each of these different things? Like, for instance, I have an Instagram account, I have a Twitter account, I have most of the scaffolding in place. I have no idea how to, obviously, that's why I'm taking this to best use them. And so, but I also feel like some of this is over my head, and is it prohibitively expensive to kind of put, these things in place because they're really necessary, clearly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, so it's a great question. So let me take a couple points off of that. So the first is the pixel. So what's kind of nice is, like, for instance, let's just use Facebook. When you tell Facebook that you want to create a pixel, what's kind of nice is they're going to literally walk you through it. Like, what is your URL? What are you trying to do? Stuff like that. And then what it's going to do is it's really easy to kind of set that part up. And then it's going to spit out a, again, little strip of code. So either you have to feel comfortable enough putting that like in your header section. If you're using, Weebly, Squarespace, Wix, there's usually a section for that. If you're using WordPress or more of a, open source platform, you can still do that. It depends on your theme. All I'm saying though is what's kind of nice is it just needs to be installed essentially once and you're good to go. So if you can get help either doing that either internally or externally, that is something that, Skol Marketing, we a lot of times do is we can just get people set up. But just saying that you don't, again, I just want to make it clear too, is you don't always just need us to be able to do it. But what is kind of nice is once you set it up, it's good to go. It's very similar like Google Analytics. Once you set up Google Analytics on your site, it just runs. Same thing with Facebook pixels. So to go off your second question, Michelle, is yes, absolutely. That is something we can definitely help you with. It is not cost prohibitive because we're essentially just doing a one-time type of thing. And a lot of times we can then either set up ads or set up your account and get you going. And then obviously we can manage that on an ongoing basis if you want, or we work with clients that say, hey, Ben, can you just set this up for us? And then we're going to manage it ongoing. Absolutely. That's something we can absolutely do. That's why we offer different types of service levels, even with, webinars up to just setting things up, or we also do one-on-one consulting too. If that's of something that if we want to go further in depth to these types of things and you want to do them more specific and set stuff up, we can also do a learning kind of component to it as well.
I have a sort of I don't want to, if other people are wanting to ask questions, don't want to take up too much time. I wanted to ask one more thing though. I have at this point just attached, because this was sort of an accident for me to create this business, because the business I was in closed their doors in December. The question is, I have a personal website, and as an actor, I wear a lot of different hats. So I have an audiobooks page, I have a voiceover page, I have, my resume page, and then now this tours that I'm going to be doing, is a separate page. Is it better to have a separate website? Do you think it seems like it might be a beneficial thing to have a separate website for my tours, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, that might be something we can talk about. I know we've got a meeting kind of coming up. And so I think that's something we'll maybe get into further. But what I would say, Michelle, just kind of for the general kind of term and for everyone here is, unfortunately, it depends. There are situations where you can start to house them together. This is usually what I tell people is if the same demographic and the, again, the products or services that you're offering go together, and obviously you would have to be the one that kind of determines that. If they realistically go together, then yes. But if you're just trying to house a bunch of things are together, like I've had clients do that before where, oh, well, I do painting and then I also do car mechanic and then I'm actually selling, again, beauty products. Well, those don't really go together. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to kind of be realistic about them. Plus they have different demographics. So that's something obviously individually with you, Michelle, I can go in further, but just for the grander kind of, again, messaging is it's going to be kind of depending. But, again, if you have different services that aren't complementary and you have different demographics, then most likely you're going to want even a simple site to be separate then.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions? Elizabeth, did you have one?
Nope.
Okay, gotcha.
I learned a lot
unmuted,
though.
so. No, absolutely. Well, what I'll do is if you guys have any questions, Diane, go ahead.
Hi. Are you running another session at 2:00 or 2:30 until 3:30, or because I'm going to a Skol Marketing session right after
not an actual workshop.
Okay, or something like this. Level 2, it's boost. It's on boosting.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm not running that one specifically.
Okay. The question that I have is actually related to it's something that one of our members in a film group has passed on. Could I read it to you and see what?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay, she said, I'd like to have a sense of what budget level is appropriate for our Facebook page. We spend $25 per movie tactically to grow ticket sales with no idea if this is the right amount. We think we're seeing some positive reaction, but it's hard to know for sure. We might also want to consider promoting our page after the pandemic to increase follows.
Yep.
So, you know,
So, okay.
it's a good tool, but we need a better handle on setting
So
it up.
Diane, how much were you guys spending per day? Per month?
25 per movie. So we have like 6 film days or 6 films, say.
Okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay, so it kind of depends. So here's what I'll say is, again, what's kind of nice about Facebook and all of social media is, unlike, again, if we advertise on Google, like if you were to ask me that on Google, I always tell people you minimum have to have a $500 a month, pretty much ad budget per month on Google. Otherwise, it's just not going to run, just the way that Google kind of operates. On social media, you can actually do a much lower kind of one. I usually try to tell people though that to realistically be around that $200 per month to really kind of get going. Now, again, you can do $25 here, you can do those types of things. The problem is though, is Diane, if you're only doing, $25 per, like, you're talking about movie, that might be you're just boosting a post. Well, that's fine. But if we want to get into some of these detailed ads that we're talking about, I highly encourage you to start to, again, take some of that time and some of the specifics and to kind of put out that, it doesn't mean you have to run the same ad for $200, but I'm just saying you have to give it some time and you have to really put some budget behind it to really make it, again, kind of useful for you. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you very
And
much.
then, yeah, and I actually will, again, second what you were saying though is absolutely also, look at promoting. But, again, if we do like even the boosting or the ads, remember to do that little trick of inviting all of those people that liked your post. Those are free likes, but you should absolutely then also look at having we kind of call it a drip campaign or a drip ad campaign where you're going to kind of have that promotion, even if that's only $20 a month, just sitting in the background. So for you guys, it's like, hey, we want to go after movie buffs that love this. And again, I don't know more of your organization, I'm just making that up, but you can say that, and it's just going to constantly be running in the background and showing your page to more and more people that fit that. So,
okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And the one last thing that kind of brought up too, that I'll say too, is the reason that you also want to have again, a good amount of time to run your ads. Now, sometimes they're all time-based, but that, again, where sometimes you just don't want to run ads for 2 days, and why you sometimes want to do a month, and why we kind of look at these things as a month is, sometimes I tell people, how often do you log onto Facebook? Me, obviously, because of my job and just what I'm in, I log in multiple times a day. My dad, on the other hand, he might log in once or twice a month, maybe, maybe once a week or whatever. The point being, though, is if you're going after someone like my dad, for instance, let's just say, again, goes in once every 10 days. Well, if you only ran your ad for 7 days, well, he didn't even get a chance to kind of see it. So we kind of have to play that game a little bit too, and understanding that not everybody is on the platform every single day as we're running it. So that's just another little component to kind of look at.
A very important one for us because that's the demographic.
Yeah, exactly. See, and then that's what I kind of mentioned is, Facebook is going to be predominantly baby boomers. It's going to be, so it's understanding that, but also it's not even understanding where they're at. It's sometimes understanding their, honestly, not even just like their behavior, or patterns, but it's their, again, how much they're using it too. So. So yeah, so with that said, again, if anyone has any questions, I do just want to mention that, again, I want to obviously thank you guys for tuning in. I want to just point out that if you guys like these workshops, to check in on our schedule there, skolmarketing.com/workshops. We have another one coming up this week, I think, or next week, but then we have another few coming up next month. So I encourage you guys to kind of check those out. You can also see a lot of the recordings from our past workshops on our YouTube channel. And last but not least is, another thing that we also offer is a free consultation. And really what it is it's free time. If you want a little bit more help, like with Michelle, if we maybe just wanted to, again, get some help with understanding and setting up a pixel or doing something like that, we can definitely do that. Again, it's completely complimentary. It's not a sales pitch. If you do want to talk about our services, would obviously be more than happy to talk about that. But I also know that sometimes, I know I talk fast. I know these subjects are very heady. And so sometimes we just need a little bit more one-on-one help. And that's what we do to kind of have a way to give back. So if that's of interest for you and you just want to talk a little bit more and learn a little bit more, but see maybe a little bit more one-on-one help, feel free, just simply reach out and just say that you're looking for that. And we'd be more than happy to set that up. So, so with that said, do we have any more final questions? No? Okay. Well, I will let you guys go. I want to again say thank you guys for coming. Look for the thank you email that will have this presentation along with the recording in it. And I hope see you guys at a future workshop. Skol.
Thank you. And
Thank you
Have
very
a good
much.
day, everyone.
thanks, everyone. Thanks, Elizabeth. Have a great day.
You too.